Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass Podcast. This for UFC Vegas 68. This episode of the Dogger Pass Podcast and all episodes of the Dogger Pass Podcast are brought to you by Prize Picks. Use promo code DOP when making a new account to get a match up to $100 on your first deposit. Producer Megan on the sticks, Cody Saftic on the line, breaking down. It's UFC Vegas 68, but it's a weird card because we got the road to the UFC finals here. So we've got a bunch of Asian fighters trying to get their spot in the UFC. Taping some of them, it's like, these are going to be kind of entertaining fights. I don't know how long a lot of these guys are going to last in the organization, but, the card is obviously not filled with a bunch of fun names or anything like that, or like top names, people that you actually know, but it's actually, I think it could be an entertaining night of fights. Plus, we got Bellator. Like, there's plenty of action if you want to be getting down on Saturday. There are plenty of spots for you to bet if you are a full-blown degen, which we are. How you doing, Code? How was your week off?
Yeah, good week off, man. Good week off. Reset the batteries, and then this card, you'd need, even if you were a hardcore fight fan, you probably were not familiar with at least a few of these names and required tape studies. So at least they gave you an extra week to kind of get ahead of it. This card would normally be absolute trash, but you mentioned it. It's like a late start time. Card starts at 10 p.m. So you watch Bellator, and then when Bellator is essentially done, yeah, for the people that are going to be hanging out 2, 3 in the morning, this is great. You get Choi versus Kyle Nelson at like 2:30 or something. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. It'd be a good Saturday night coming up. In terms of the bets, I don't think you need to bet every single fight on this card. There's 5 or 6 good spots at best. You take those 5 or 6 good spots, you move on to your Bellator spots, another 5 or 6, 7 good spots there, and I think that's how you attack making your parlays, because there's going to be some greasy underdogs coming through, 100%. Most of these guys that are in these tournaments, there's 4 tournament fights, these road to the UFCs, they're all making their UFC debut, essentially. Neither of them, outside of one guy who we'll talk about, should probably be at this level, but these guys don't fight in a cage, right? They have very little cage experience. They have very little experience with elbows. The rule set's completely different. So you're going to have guys make bonehead mistakes. You're going to have guys lose points. It's just going to be greasy. There's a couple good fights on the card, sure, that are not these tournament-style fights, but again, the UFC knows what they were doing. They knew that the primary demographic for the show would probably be the Asian market. So not only are these 4 tournament fights catering to them, but pretty much the rest of the card is as well. Tatsuro Taira, Jeong Yeong Kim, Jeong Yeong Park. A whole lot of Jeong Yeongs on the card, by the way. Choi, as we mentioned. Jung. I think if you were, a big Spanish fight fan, these are all the best Spanish prospects. You wouldn't be into the card. The rest of the world might not. If you're a Canadian fight fan, these are all the best Canadian guys. You'd be pumped up. The rest of the world might not. If you're an Asian fight fan, these are a ton of good prospects, right? It's going to be an exciting card. For the North American audience, maybe not. But after tape studying it, I'm seeing the exact same thing you're seeing. Maybe you get the pick right. Maybe you get the pick wrong. But the fight will be good, man. Like, they're not that good. They'll lead to entertaining fights.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the main event. We've got Serghei Spivac taking on Derrick Lewis. Minus 225 Spivac, plus 190 for Derrick Lewis. There's some images floating out, or there's like a image floating out there of Derrick Lewis. I think he was like booted off of Instagram, and he isn't very active on Twitter. So we'll see at weigh-ins like how much slimmer the Black Beast is. We talked about this fight a while ago. Obviously, this fight was canceled a couple hours before the fight was actually supposed to take place. Like, all of the prelims are on, and we find out Derrick Lewis is sick or whatever, had to get pulled off of the card. We both like Spivac in that situation. If Lewis comes in better shape, I don't really know how that works for him, especially in this matchup, because the issue with like Spivac is like you were kind of concerned. It's like if he doesn't put him away, and like Lewis carries that power into deep rounds. We've seen it many, many times before. Even if he looks super, super gas, he can still knock you out. If he's having fighting a 280-pound man when you're 230 pounds and trying to hold him down, that's exhausting. It's exactly what happened to Shamil Abdurakhimov when he took on Derrick Lewis, right? It's like by round 4, he's like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. And Derrick Lewis put him away in round 4. If Derrick Lewis comes in at like 240, 250, like 245, 250 or something like that, Sure, it's going to help his cardio. Sure, it's going to help his mobility on the feet, but I don't know if it helps him in a wrestling match because it should make it a little bit easier on Spivac. I still like Spivac to win. The price at minus 225 seems about right to me. Like, I could totally see, of course, Derrick Lewis landing a big bomb, putting him out. But I feel like more often than not, like 70% of the time, Spivac is able to take him down many, many times, wear him out, and probably find a finish in, like, say, round 2 or round 3, maybe a little bit later if it gets there. On Prize Picks, they've got Spivac's takedowns at 2, I believe. I think that's a nice little look. I've added that to, like, my... Yeah, he's 2.0 takedowns. I think he can get to 3. Like, you go... And look, Serghei fight, he ended up getting 6 takedowns and he finished them in the second round. So he had 6 takedowns there. He's good at taking people down. He's not the greatest at holding people down. So it's like he could get there in round 1. He could get to 2. No problem. Greg Hardy was able to take him down 3 times. Vanderlei took him down 3 times. Carlos Felipe took him down 3 times. Like, I think the path is definitely there for him to take down Derrick Lewis over 2 times. So I like that on Prize Picks. From a betting perspective, I'm going to wait till weigh-ins anyway. But, yeah, I got Spivac inside the distance. It's a matter of how long Derrick Lewis can last. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to agree, man. Honestly, the line opened up minus 180. 2 days ago, I got it at minus 190. And then this awesome picture of Derrick Lewis starts surfacing, and everybody's talking about it, and he looks in great shape, and he's down 25 pounds, and it's going to be faster and better cardio. The line's now moved to minus 225. It moves 35 points since this picture came out. So are people expecting a better version of Derrick Lewis? Perhaps. But to me, it's just a little too late, right? He's 37 years old. This is a man that got to the highest point of the mountain already. He's already fought for a world championship twice. You know, he's fought Francis Ngannou and actually has a win over him. He's been there. He's done that. So why at 37 with back issues and health issues would you suddenly be like, yeah, I need to get trimmed down? Well, I'll tell you why, because he had health problems going into his last fight. He literally got pulled because he has health issues. His doctor at this point would have been like, listen, you have high blood pressure. We're not letting you go and compete. You need to change your lifestyle. So, yeah, he's made some dietary changes, but what you'll often find with some of these like killer heavyweights is they'll go on a vegan diet for a little bit to try to get their mobility back and help the swelling in their joints, and they just lose that zip, that power. So I'm not going to say Lewis is going to lose that power by losing down the 20 pounds, but I don't think it's the cure for everything. I think there's behind the scenes, behind the curtains, he's having probably larger issues, and the losing 25 pounds, not necessarily, a good sign. Now, in terms of the wrestling, yeah, you talked about Serghei Spivac. The guy gets takedowns on a lot of guys. What's important to note is that Augusto Sakai is 260 pounds. Greg Hardy is 265 pounds. Jared Vandera is 265 pounds. Carlos Felipe, he's a little guy, 258 pounds. Tai Tuivasa is 265 pounds. Yeah, he gets down those guys all day. If Lewis was still 260, he'd be going down. If he's 245, he's still going down. Spivac will get the takedown. Now, you mentioned doesn't have the best top control. Well, 28 years old, his grappling's definitely getting better. He'll oftentimes use multiple takedowns to get you down, but it doesn't seem to exhaust his gas tank all that much. Whereas Lewis, he explodes to get back up. He's going to get gassed out. The way he gets gassed out, then the takedown should be easier to come by. I would think that Sakai, bigger guy, filling out his own frame, is going to be able to do a lot of good ground and pound from top control. And also with Derrick Lewis, he hasn't fought a whole lot of like submission guys. He's fought guys that want to take him down. He's fought a whole lot of guys that want to bruise him. But how many of these guys went in there with the game plan of choking him out? Not Pavlich, not Tuivasa. Daukaus might have thought it, but didn't even try to take him down. Not Cyril Gahn. Curtis Blades, maybe not really a submission guy. Ilir Latifi, Blagoy Ivanov, Junior Dos Santos. Daniel Cormier is the only guy that actually fished for it. And if you remember that fight, the choke's half in and Lewis is tapping. So Spivac's a big boy. He gets on you, tires you out, ground and pounds you, and looks for the neck. I think it presents itself, and I think Spivac probably locks it up by submission. Your issue here is that you've got a heavyweight fight. You're betting against Derrick Lewis, who's the consummate puncher's chance. But we talk about his puncher's chance every single time, and lately it's not coming up nearly as often as it has in the past. So at 37, I wouldn't say he's shot. I'd just say he's not really, as Daniel Cormier says, not the peak of the mountain, but he's going to knock out Spivac. I strongly disagree. I would say Spivac is 28 years old, coming into his prime on a nice winning streak, looking progressively better every time. Mm-hmm. Derrick Lewis is not the same guy. So yeah, puncher's chance, I get it. Totally get it. Heavyweight fight. Oof, don't want this on my top ticket because unless you're going to hedge. it's a volatile fight. It's not enough for me to bet Derrick Lewis. I got to go with Spivac to get the job done. Probably inside the distance, probably by submission.
By submission, there are plus 360s out there. Most of his wins have been usually by ground and pound when he gets finishes. So that's why. But, I don't know. You go back to another guy, Tai Tuivasa, who doesn't have much of a ground game. He's been able to get an arm triangle against him. And he has some submissions on his record back in his regional scene days. So not the craziest look there whatsoever. Let's move on to the next fight. We got Jung taking on Devin Clark, minus 250. Jung plus 210 for Devin Clark. Who you got here, buddy?
And this one smells like potential apple pie shit. I could see Jung going out there and absolutely steamrolling him. Of course, he's got big power. He's got nasty elbows inside the clinch. The win over Kennedy and Jakui. It's like, Jesus, man. When he's on at his best, he's a problem in the pocket. The issues that I have with him is that his cardio doesn't really seem to be all that good. You go back to the Sam Alvey fight where he noticeably starts to fatigue the longer the thing goes. And then generally his wins are kind of inside the distance. They're kind of in that first round or two. I don't know how his counter grappling would act over the course of 15 minutes. I don't know if he's got the gas tank to keep the fight standing for the full 15 minutes. And the thing with Devin Clark is that he's not above just clinging onto your leg and pressing you into the cage for the entire duration of the match, if he so pleases. Another thing with Jung is he doesn't appear to be the biggest 205er in there. He was noticeably smaller than Kennedy, but he was obviously way smaller than Dustin Jacoby his last time out, and he ends up getting TKO'd in the first. With Devin Clark, again, he doesn't appear to be the biggest 205er. He'd fought once at 185 in his UFC debut against Alex Nicholson, got KO'd, and then never again. But he's coming off a fight at heavyweight, he fought Willie Knight at heavyweight. He fought that Azmat Mirzakhanov, not at heavyweight, but, still a pretty big boy. I think that he's going to have some size, not necessarily size, but I think he's going to have some strength. He's got those big, thick legs of his, and I think he's going to have some success pinning him up against the cage in the clinch. Thing with Devin Clark is that there's just not enough damage, man. He's not really throwing his hands for the most part. He's landing some short little knees to the thigh and whatnot, but at any point, Jung's able to separate off the cage and land in his hands. He's got more than enough firepower to knock out Devin Clark. He's got more than enough firepower to just land the more damaging blows, and they're the eye-catching blows. And ultimately, what are the judges going to look at the end of the 15 minutes? Devin Clark, that had more cage control time, press him up against the cage, or Jung, who was able to hurt him, maybe land a couple good spots, maybe do a little more damage. So the line is just too big for me. Jung's kind of just a little too much, knowing that Devin Clark probably has a wrestling advantage, probably is going to cling on to him, probably going to press him up against the cage, and they're in the apex. He doesn't got to go a long way to find him. So, yeah, part of me is actually worried that this would be the big underdog that comes through. But the other part of me is like, well, why don't you take some Devin Clark action? It's I just don't really care for him, man. He's not fighting to win. He's fighting to grind by and skim by rounds and maybe win on a decision. There's not enough killer instinct there for me. So largely this fight's a pass. I guess gun to my head, if I had to pick, I would probably take Jung. But again, there's a smell to me here that I'm not digging. And I think that Devin Clark could, with the proper game plan, give him all types of fits.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said there. And the thing is, with Devin Clark, I know he's got tree trunk thighs, just super, super big legs, which probably makes it hard for him to make 185 pounds. If you remember when they found him on looking for a fight, the guy, Dana's you're a light heavyweight, you should probably be a middleweight. He's 6 feet tall. He's taking on Jung, who's 6'4". Jung is a big light heavyweight. Devin Clark is a small light heavyweight. So trying to press a guy with that strength, the guy who showed that he's got some power in the clinch with his elbows, could be a tricky proposition for Devin Clark to pull through with. He has been historically very, very durable. He's obviously a big-time grinder. I'm not getting there from a betting perspective on Clark, and I'm actually siding with you with Jung. But yeah, minus 250. It just doesn't get me too excited on this card. There's lots of fights to bet, so not going to force my hand on this one. And and I really on the over under. It's just I'm actually, if I was gun to my head, had to bet something on this fight, I'd probably bet the over 2.5 rounds at plus 130. I know that Mirzakhanov got the third round finish, but Devin Clark was winning that fight. like very, very cleanly up until that point. Like my butt was puckered because I had a whole bunch of money on Mirzakhanov. He gets the third round finish, but yeah, he doesn't get that crazy flying knee, and who knows where?
But see, who
knows
there's a good
where?
example.
Like, it probably goes to decision. Is all I was gonna say. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, there's a good example though, right? I had Mirzakhanov, you had Mirzakhanov, pretty much everybody at home had Mirzakhanov, and most guys took him inside the distance. And universally, everybody was like, "Oh man, I done screwed up." And then Bohm hits him with the flying knee, knocks him out. And that's why you always have to watch the fight. Fight metrics, not the story. When you look at fight metric, Devin Clark was getting outstruck, where he got outstruck in that fight, 79-14. Okay. He got 0 takedowns over Mirzakhanov. In fact, he never even tried a takedown. He went 0 for 0, and he had 26 seconds of control time. So he did have no control. He had no takedowns. He had no strikes landed, and yet he was universally believed by most to probably be winning the fight. How is that? Yeah. Those are the kind of fights that Devin Clark are in. There's not much happening, and he might be winning. And yeah, I feel like Jung could absolutely smoke him right out of there in the first round, smash him in the head with an elbow, goodbye. And it's like, damn, I should have loaded up on that. I think that there's a second scenario here where you're actually right. That's the last thing I want to address. Jung's actually a pretty big guy, 6'4". I've mentioned that he was small against Kennedy, who's also massive. He was small against Justin Jacoby. Justin Jacoby's a pretty massive guy as well. So my mistake. That you're absolutely right, 6'4". But the advantage for Devin Clark is that he's always a shorter guy, and he's able to use that low center of gravity and those big legs to just ram you up against the cage and, give you these awkward spots. So I think we're on the same page. Neither of us got the cojones to bet Clark, but both of us seem smart enough to maybe go in a different direction instead of trying to load up against him.
Yeah. We don't want to bet on a guy whose strategy will probably be to get standing cage control and then pray that the judges reward that standing cage control. That seems pretty, like, why force your hand if, like, that's how you kind of see the fight playing out? So, yeah, none of us are doubting that, like, Jung is going to be delivering the more damaging shots in most scenarios that this fight plays out. So, it's a stay away from me all the way around. Next up, we got Marcin Tybura taking on Blagoy Ivanov. Minus 135 to Tybura, plus 115 Ivanov. I grabbed Blagoy at plus 130. I think he opened and he was like plus 160. I missed the boat on the early action, but here's how I really kind of see this fight. I think that like the wrestling between these two is pretty much a wash. Blagoy's super tough. Both of these guys are like relatively low volume. My general mentality about this fight in general is that Blagoy is incredibly durable. He's went to decision in every single fight that he's been in. It's crazy that you have a heavyweight fight and the over 2.5 is minus 245. I just think that this is going to be a very, very closely contested heavyweight decision. And I took the plus money at plus 130. Am I going to be shocked if I lose that fight? Like, Blagoy's in close fights all the time. Absolutely not. But I think he's got maybe a slight edge in like technical boxing, a slight edge in volume, very, very ever so slight. But yeah, it's a close heavyweight fight. I took the underdog. I don't know if I would really see how I could get to a point where I'd be laying juice in what I think is like a pretty 50-50 fight. So Blagoy for me. What about you?
Yeah, I went the other way. I just can't get behind Blagoy anymore. I love this guy. I mean, talk about Fedor's retiring on Saturday night. And Blagoy Ivanov, I mean, his claim to fame was defeating him in the 2008 World Combat Sambo Championships. And he got stabbed in the heart in a Bulgarian nightclub. And he took years off from the sport, former Bellator champion. It's crazy that he's still going. I love the guy. I think he's he's one of the more durable guys that's ever stepped in. Limited. The fights are close, but they're not scoring them for him. I had him over Derrick Lewis. Why? Because he gets takedowns over Lewis all day if he wants them. And he did. He got 3 takedowns. Fortunately, did absolutely nothing with them. Gassed out. Loses a split decision to Derrick Lewis. Fine. I bet him against Augusto Sakai in the next fight. Why? Because Blagoy's tough, man. He'll get the job done. Okay. No. He just stares at him, attempts hardly any takedowns, gets punched up from range, gasses out, second straight time, loses the third round cleanly, loses the split decision. Damn. But there's no way Mind Blow got Ivanov. In no world is he going to lose to Marcos Rogério de Lima. Not going to happen. So I absolutely load up on him. And yet he won, but he looked awful, Paul. He's so slow. He doesn't attempt any takedowns. He's durable. I'll give him that. And he's usually walking forward. His gas tank's no good. So after like a spirited first round, his hands are low, he marches forward, and he gets hit a whole lot. The thing with Tybura is, for as limited as he is, he's got that karate background. He's got like, quick feet for a heavyweight, guy that moves around good, and decent cardio. In fact, cardio is the only reason he won his last fight against Alexander Romanov, because he's getting ragdolled for the first 7 minutes, but he stays with it. And then he's able to come back and beat him. The Greg Hardy fight, he's getting beat early. He's getting chipped up early. He stays with it. He tires him out. He takes him out late. For a 260-pound man who's 37 years old, yeah, his cardio is pretty good. He's decently mobile enough. Output could be a little bit better, but Ivanov's output's not all that good either. And what I think is going to happen is it's going to be a contested 1-1 going into the third, and Ivanov will just gas out, as he always does. Could he go out there with the game plan of taking down Tybura and making it happen? Sure he could, but he's not going to. And in fact, Tybura might just lean on him up against the cage to tire him out. First round, just lean on him the entire time. Make it a grappling match. Second and third round, he will not be throwing as much. His hands will be low. He marches on straight, linear lines, no footwork. He's so tough. He's so rugged. He's got a heart of an absolute warrior, but I can't put my money on him. He's just too slow, too plodding, and too predictable. So got to go the other way here in Marcin Tybura. But middling heavyweights, expect the worst. I'd rather have plus money. Not going to happen. Got to take that slight minus 135.
And Tybura on Prize Picks, 1.5 takedowns. I like the under there. I just think like the wrestling here is a bit of a watch. I won't be shocked to see Marcin Tybura get to like 2, maybe even 3. But I think more often than not, these guys stand or have like a lot of standing cage control over the course of 15 minutes. Probably not the most exciting heavyweight fight. And,
small cage favors Ivanov. I'll give you that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to be stunned if I lose that bet. Not going to lie. We got Doo Ho Choi taking on Kyle Nelson. Doo Ho Choi, a minus 180 favorite. Nelson can be had at plus 155. Haven't seen Doo Ho Choi since 2019. He had to do Korean military service and so on and so forth. A guy who had, a big fan following and a lot of people thought really, really big things for him when he broke onto the scene in the UFC. Back in 2014, he went on a 3 first-round knockout streak, and then we kind of saw the limitations in his game. Cub Swanson, what a hell of a fight. We were both there in attendance at the ACC back then.
Fight of the year.
Fight of the year, absolutely. And then the Stevens knocks him out in round 2. Jourdain knocks him out in round 2. Durability, a bit of a question, obviously. His defensive striking is a bit of a liability, but he's taking on a guy in Kyle Nelson who really doesn't have much of a wrestling game to speak of. Like, he's been working on it, I think, but like he's definitely not elite by any stretch of the imagination. I'd be pretty stunned if he was able to just take Doo Ho Choi down at will and grind out a decision. And we've seen him gas in the later it goes into fights. I think Doo Ho Choi, rightful favorite here. My biggest concern here is, massive layoff. What type of shape is he going to be in? Maybe he's made massive improvements, and this is the best we're going to ever see from him. But I struggled to get to a minus 180 on him with so many question marks coming into this fight. Obviously due to his, we're over a 3-year layoff at this point. So hoping for the best for him, but my money is not going to get there. What's your take here, bud?
Yeah, it's super exciting to see Doo Ho Choi. I think you and me are a little more Doo Ho Choi fanboy than everybody else because Fight Network owned the deep video library for so long. So we were very familiar with this guy. And Robin Block used to do breakdowns specifically on the Korean Superboy. The guy moves so well. Everything is just very, very accurate, excellent striking, good eyes, right? But he's fighting at a very limited regional scene level. When he came to the UFC, he was the next big thing, man. He smokes out Juan Manuel Puig, 18 seconds. Killer way to go and make a UFC debut. Beats Sam Sicilier, who was decent. Beats Thiago Tavares, decent. Like you said, all first-round knockouts. But the UFC has a tendency to be like, damn, well, I got a kid here who's undefeated. Well, he's once beaten. He was once beaten. He's 25 years old. He's 3-0 in the UFC, 3 first-round knockouts. He's exciting. This Asian market's high for him. People are high for him. He's marketable. So what do? You throw him in against Cub Swanson? Like, It's a tough fight. He's 25 years old, right? He's taking on a savvy veteran of the game, a former guy that was a perennial top 5 of the division, 5 times the amount of pro experience that he has, and it's a crazy fight. But if you remember it, first round, Duho Choi is just piecing on. Like, he looks so good. The longer the fight goes, that junkyard dog from Cub Swanson comes alive. That's what allows him to win, to work his way back into the fight, ultimately win it. Fair. Junkyard dog. Now he fights Jeremy Stephens. The first round, he beats Jeremy Stephens. He's way faster than him. He outstrikes him. He's moving well. The second round, Jeremy Stephens is a junkyard dog. Okay? He's a guy that's going to come after you. So the second round, he junkyard dogs him and knocks him out. And then wouldn't you know it, the Charles Jourdain fight, in the first round, Duhoy Choi looked pretty good, right? I thought he won the first round. He scores a knockdown. The second round, Charles Jourdain is on his ass. So yeah, skill is there, but maybe not the durability. But beyond durability, is he's still only 25, 27, 28 years old during these fights. He's still young, and they're not doing him no favors by saying like, hey, let's build you up against a guy with durability issues, or let's build you up against a guy that's not ranked in the division. No, they keep giving him these high-profile, tough fights, and he looks good early and fades late. So Kyle Nelson actually does have the recipe to defeat him, right? In a way, the guy's only great characteristic is that he's kind of a junkyard dog. He's a guy that's going to stick with it and fight to the end. The difference is he is, by no stretch of the imagination, on the level of a Cub Swanson or a Jeremy Stephens or a Charles Jourdain. He's way more limited. He's got a little bit of cage control work. He can grind you. He can take an okay shot. He's a tad bit slow standing. He doesn't really throw a whole lot of combination punches. It's usually one and done. There's a strong argument that he probably should have won his last fight against Jai Herbert, right? But again, it's just he's not doing enough. Yeah, he lands a couple decent shots, but it's one and done. There's a big right hand. What about a follow-up combination? Nothing. Stands his ground, waits, tries to cut you off, tries to pin you up against the cage. Ultimately goes to decision. He loses. He doesn't agree with it, but you need to see a little more activity. The Billy Quarantillo fight. Billy Quarantillo is output, right? He's all pace. Kyle Nelson couldn't swim with him, right? He got tired. He gets tired in a lot of these fights. He started off well against Diego Ferreira, short notice. He got tired. He started off decent against Matt Sales, 1-1 going into the third, completely gasses out, got subbed by Matt Sales. You got to keep that in mind, right? Grappling when he's tired, non-existent. Polo Reyes, he knocks out. Okay, great. I don't know what that does for you. A lot of guys have been there. A lot of guys have done that. And then the last two, he gasses out, and then against Jai Herbert's low work rate. So to me, Duo Choi's got him beat pretty much everywhere. He's a better grappler. He's a better wrestler. He's got better striking. He's a lot faster. If you're going to go one and done striking with Duho Choi, he's going to hit the target, and you're going to miss the target. The one thing is the kid's been off for 4 years, and Kyle Nelson, if you don't put him away, man, he's going to keep coming forward, and he's going to make it greasy, and he's going to make it tough. The reason why I'm just going to go ahead and pick Choi is, one, I got to go with skill at the end of the day. And I know this kid's got the skill. He's got the heart. He's got the durability. He's got all these things. I don't know, but I know he's got the skill. Second thing is the damage, because you watched it live, brother. 206, I think it was, UFC 206. When he fought Cub Swanson, that's a life-changing beating. He took a lot of damage. They throw him back in there quick against Jeremy Stephens, who, by the way, hardest hitting featherweight in the division. He doesn't knock guys down. He knocks guys out. Nobody knows who he is, but he's one of the hardest hitting guys. He knocks you out. That's tough as well. Then you give him Charles Jourdain. He's never been in a boring fight. He's never fought a guy that took no damage other than Des Green. It's a lot of damage. So the 4 years off, that's good for him. He hasn't taken no serious damage. He's been able to go, stay active, work on other things, develop. 31 years old, still prime of his life. I think the 4 years off, considering how much damage he had been taking, would actually be a good thing. And then the last thing is, if you remember when Korean Zombie came back from his military service, fought Dennis Bermudez, starched him, right? The 4 years off is good. It was a good thing for him. Healed up his body, allowed him to work on some new wrinkles, some new tricks. Still a good fighter. The 4 years, you don't just lose it, right? So I think Du Choi's got his number. He's going to take him. And the line is actually not too bad. You're betting on the unknown and the what if and the he should be. But yeah, Kyle Nelson flew out to Vegas on like Tuesday. Like, they're bringing him in for a reason. This is almost exclusively an all-Asian card. Duho Choi's legitimately a good prospect and a guy that was considered a star over there for a period of time. They're finally doing what they should have done a few years ago and ease them into a winnable fight. And unfortunately for my Canadian brother, Kyle Nelson, I think they're looking at him as that easy fight, which stylistically, I don't think he matches up particularly good against Choi. If for whatever reason this was a 5-rounder, which it's obviously not going to be, I'd be tempted to live bet it if he could survive for the first 2 or 3. But yeah, it's 3-round fight. Choi coasts 2, runs away if he has to. If not, catches him clean and knocks him out.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't mind it. I don't know if I'm going to get there to the window, but the under 2.5 rounds I see out there at like minus 175 right now. It's like could be an absolute banger right off of the hop here. Nelson has been doing a little bit of a better job of pacing himself, so it's not some sort of sure lock or anything like that. But that's where I would go, just because I am a little bit scared of the unknown. We'll see more at weigh-ins, and you probably, I mean, Duho Choi doesn't exactly look like a ferocious killer out there, so I don't know if you're going to actually take very much away from the weigh-ins, to be perfectly honest. I would go to the under if I was going to do anything.
I'll give you a greasy theory here real quick too. So all the Asian guys would be used to fighting during this time zone, right? And that's why they've shifted it for them. These guys that are, Kyle Nelson's a great example, okay? He trains at 7 o'clock at night. Then he goes home to his wife and kids. He has some dinner, reads a book, and calls it a night. Well, now he's fighting at like 3 o'clock in the morning, 2:30 in the morning against Duho Choi, who won't be affected by that, because I think he's going to be a lot more, used to that. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I would think that you're going to see a guy like Kyle Nelson, who probably worked his entire camp on his cardio, come out and gas out for no other reason than adrenaline dump, body's not reacting the same, thrown off, just flew to Vegas on Tuesday, got settled by Wednesday, had to make the last little bit of weight by Friday, sit around all day with my nerves. You're thinking about it all the time. You're sitting there and you're thinking about, well, have a nap. I can't. So my body's not used to napping at this time. They're going to get thrown off by it. I think there's guys that are going to get seriously thrown off by it. And it's going to benefit Da Eung Jung. It's going to benefit Duho Choi. It's going to benefit Yusaku Kinoshita, right? Those guys are going to benefit from it. So generally, like on these, I don't know, I'm not saying Asians don't typically do good in the UFC, but like this will be one of those cards where it's like they beat the American guys up pretty handily, I think.
All right, well, you mentioned his name. We got Yusaku Kinoshita taking on Adam Fugitt. Kinoshita is a minus 320 favorite. Fugitt can be had for plus 270. I was considering a bet on Fugitt, but then, the more I kind of think about it, like, okay, so Fugitt's going to have he's like way bigger. Like the one thing I really took away from like Kinoshita on Contender Series is like this guy's pretty undersized for 170 pounds. He was taking on like a 6'4" monster in that Henrique kid, but Fugitt is like 6'1" in his own right. Like he's pretty large. Round 1 for Fugitt against Morales, he was able to take him down, had some decent success, landed some half decent kicks. I can't quite get there because, he got his bell rung. He got knocked out in round 3. He had a pretty decent account of himself for being like a plus 500, plus 600 underdog against Michael Morales there. Wrestling looks okay. He may be able to exploit that here, but while it's on the feet, he's giving up so much speed to Kinoshita that I don't know if I'm actually going to get to it. So for the purpose of the show, and then like on Toutmaster, I'm going to pick Fugitt because of plus 270 underdog. But yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get to the betting window with it, because I do obviously see why Kinoshita is the favorite here. The speed differential on the feet will be very, very. There's a massive difference between these guys and how mobile they are. Small cage, maybe it helps Fugitt a little bit, but not enough for me to actually put my money where my mouth is. But yeah, for the purposes of this show and in Toutmaster, I'll be taking the underdog shot here. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to agree largely on a lot of points. I got Yusaku Kinoshita, but the worry here for me is that he's 22 years old and he's, for the most part, rather unproven. So when you're making your UFC debut, you're taking on a guy that's tough, durable, a little bit older, can drag you into those later rounds. That unknown at minus 325 is stuff that you don't like. But yeah, this kid, as far as I'm concerned, genuinely checks out. Again, only 22 years old, solid prospect, someone that's going to continuously to get better. 5-0 as an amateur, all 5 wins inside the distance. I'm pretty sure all by the first round finish. And then as a pro, largely the same. Keep in mind he's got 1 pro loss, but nothing he did. He grabbed the cage. He grabbed the cage a bunch of times, and they disqualified him. But he didn't lose. He didn't actually lose. Was he getting tired? Maybe. What I think is these Japanese guys, I already mentioned this once in the show, they don't train in a cage. They train in a ring. Most of their fights are in a ring. When you move them to a cage, they're not even trying to do it. It's just like it's a natural reaction to grab it, right? So he gets disqualified, whatever. If anything, good learning experience, right? Learn the rules, go to the gym, practice what you need to practice, get better. When he fought that Jose Henrique Souza on the Contender Series, the kid's actually like 20 years old as well. So it's two young kids. But to me, the biggest takeaway is if you look at Yusaku, everything's first round, right? His debut is 52 seconds. Second fight, 2 minutes, 19 seconds. Third fight, 2:34. Fourth fight, minute 39. Got disqualified in the second round of his fifth fight. Was he tiring? Is that why he got disqualified? I don't know. Watch the replay for yourself. Knocks a guy out in minute 48. Against Jose Souza, at least he was forced to fight into the third round. And, his cardio looked pretty good, man. This kid wasn't going anywhere. He fought a good second round. He's got good punching combinations. He's strong. He's physical. He pushes him into the third round. He knocks him out in the third round, like 49 seconds into it. I thought it was a pretty solid debut. So again, 22 years old, you want to ease him in. And I don't think this is the easiest debut for him, but I do like what I saw. Adam Fugitt, meanwhile, he's 34, and that's to his benefit. He's already a full-grown man. He's already experienced things. He's already knows, a thing or two about the fight game. And he's going to have to rely heavily on that experience to causing this kid to make mistakes. Takedown, that's going to help out. Guys from Oregon, clearly he knows how to wrestle. And against Michael Morales, who's a very solid wrestler in his own right, he did manage to get that takedown. He did have some top control. He did have some success. And beyond that, when Michael Morales eventually beat the crap out of him in the second and the third round, this kid could, 34 years old, this man could take a beating. His chin was on point. Got stopped in the third round. I think everybody was happy because everyone bet Michael Morales inside the distance to improve on his minus 700 price tag. But he's got heart. He's got durability. He's probably got some decent wrestling. If he can go out there on a full camp, score a couple takedowns early, ground him, and survive the beating in the third, yeah, he could squeeze one out and steal it. So a minus 325, there's a lot of risks here if you're going with the Japanese fighter. That being said, I think he's the legitimate prospect with the better skill set, whereas Fugitt, it's so dope that you took that beating, man. Yeah, you took that beating. You was there for the taking all night. Morales had to overcome that bad first round, but beyond that, Fugitt just seemed too limited for me. So chalk it up to a potential apple pie shitter, but not quite one that I'm ready to pull the trigger on the plus money underdog yet.
And the one thing I will just add to it, because I said that there should be a massive size disparity here, probably, I think that speaks more to the fact that, Henrique was so big. That kid was, 6'4". So, that's why Kinoshita looked so small, but, he's actually 6 feet tall according to UFC stats, and Fugitt is 6'1". The only major disparity between the two of them is Fugitt's got a 6-inch reach advantage, but I think he was giving up a 10 or 11-inch reach advantage against that Henrique kid. And it's just if it's on the feet, he's so quick and light on his feet, so fast that there's going to be, it doesn't really, that reach won't really matter. He gets, the way that he slipped and ripped to get that third round knockout was pretty impressive stuff. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, probably if I'm going to get to Fugitt, it would be more like a live betting situation. If he gets an early takedown, I probably don't get my, plus 250 or plus 270 or anything like that at that point. But that's
the worry here is that he takes him down in the first, right? You live bet it because it's I thought he might be able to take him down. And then in the second, just like the Morales fight, he does not get the takedown. He gets lit up. So wrestling is the key, though. You're 100% right in that assessment.
Yeah. That's his path. If he's just hanging out at range, this kid's going to pick him apart and be so much faster. So I understand why he's the favorite. Just seemed a little bit wide for my appetite. Moving on down, we've got, now we're getting into the road to the UFC tournament here. We've got Anshul Jubli taking on Jeka Saragih. Minus 120 Jubli, plus 100 Saragih. I don't really understand this line, to be perfectly honest. I took Saragih. I've got him at minus 110, which isn't even necessarily a good line on the market right now. Anshul Jubli, from what I really saw, the fight that he was supposed to have 2 fights, but his second fight, his opponent had to pull out, a Bosch weight cut or something like that. And then his first one, he was a plus 160 underdog apparently in that fight going into it. And he ended up winning by decision, but honestly, around the 8-9 minute mark of the fight, he was noticeably slowing down. Round 3, he was kind of just holding on for dear life. He's an X's and O's type of striker, fights off of his jab, has a straight right. Everything's very straight, straightforward in terms of his striking approach. Whereas Serghei seems to have a lot more tools in his arsenal and is definitely a potent finisher. He's got the spinning back fist on there. In the fight against Pawan Man, I believe his name is, he showed that, like, you know, his grappling is a bit of a liability, but he's not a complete dope when he's down there. He's been training over here in San Diego for a bit, or for some of his, you know, some camps and stuff like that. I just think the more complete and more dangerous striker is Serghei, so I'm surprised he's the underdog here, and that's why I took a shot on Jeka Saragih. When I first saw this, I actually didn't know if these guys were guys or girls, because I literally had never seen either of their names before in my life. So it's kind of like how it started versus how it finished. Is I ended up with some money on Jeka Saragih. What's your take here, bud?
Yeah, I'm actually going to agree, but this one could be very sloppy, but I took Jeka Serghei as well. When you watch him, he's very, very he's a showman, man. He's loose in there. He's willing to take a punch, to give a punch. And then the thing is that when he gives a punch, he has got some legitimate power in his hands. Good God. He fights with his chin up in the air. Again, he's got not the greatest defensive skills. He's a long way to come. But if you're going to fight him at a low level and you're going to engage him, at some point he's going to hit you. And when he hits you, good God, he'll put you away. That fight with Pawan Mansai, the first fight on road to the UFC, sorry. It's pretty competitive going into the third round. And then he cooks him with that spinning back fist, which I'm sure there's nobody in the arena, so the audibles were pretty big on it, but he pretty much deaded him with that spinning back fist. Came out of nowhere. Highlight reel KO. One of the sweetest KOs I've seen in a while. Then that next fight against Won Bin Ki, he came in as like a plus 340 underdog against him. He was supposed to lose. And he comes in and it's like, Paul, his left hand is at his hip, his chin's in the air, and he blasts him with one straight punch from I don't know, 15 feet out, and absolutely collapses him. Like, good God. If you're going to play punchy-kicky with him, it's not going to be a good time. Anshul Jubli, meanwhile, he moves way better. It seems like he's a little more athletic. He's got the better, skill set, but it's all like looks. Like, he looks like he's moving better. Looks like he's doing more. But for the most part, he's not really getting his opponent's attention with his strikes. And then the longer the fight goes, he completely gasses out. You mentioned that in his fight with Kyung Po Kim, split decision win. I thought that early he fought well for the first round and a half. Then he gasses, and he's lucky that he won the first half because the judges end up giving him the fight on the basis of, points that he accumulated. But once he gasses, man, he's there for the taking. Kudos to him. He fights through it. He still keeps trying to push forward. He keeps trying to find a little bit of resolve, which is all good stuff. But he's there to get hit. And what I'm telling you from Jeka, you don't want to get hit, man. So this thing's going to start out competitive for the first round. Jeka might even lose a round. He might be able to get a good plus money live betting line on him. At some point, they're both going to get tired. But when they both get tired, Jaka's going to nuclear detonate one off his chin and knock him out. So I got to say, this is a sloppy, low-level fight that is going to be awesome to watch entertainment-wise. And I think Jeka knocks him out and gets the win. So, yeah, sign me up. About even money. And it's probably an even money fight. And I think one guy's got the better skill versus one guy that's got the bigger heart, the more power, the more desire, the more tenacity. And so that guy might take that early beating, but he'll win in the end.
We've got Jeong Yeong Lee taking on Jai. Minus 250 for Lee. Yi can be had for plus 210. Who you got here, buddy?
Yeah, this one's another interesting one. Sorry, what was the lines? I felt like it was way off.
Minus 250.
Yeah, plus 210. Okay, so bear with me on this one because obviously it requires, there's so many names. I gotta look it up.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with the massive favorite, right? Jeong Yeong Lee, right? Jeong Yeong Lee, look at his first couple, he's physically built quite well. It looks like he's got some decent enough power. He looks super hesitant. It's not like he's looking to engage his opponent, maybe looking to counterpunch at times, but then just doesn't do enough. Sits a little bit flat-footed. Great shape, moves well, think could be decent at 26 years old, making improvements. His first two fights on the road to UFC, he beats Bin Z with a 36-second armbar. Grappling looked pretty decent. But again, you're fighting a guy that grappling's probably no good. You got taken down, you snatch up this 36-second armbar. Not bad. Quick finish. Fight with King Lu, big right hook. Got some power, knocks him out, 42 seconds. So that's kind of the story of it. A lot of his wins are first, second round finishes. They're quite quick. Zhang Yi, meanwhile, he's got a lot of experience here, right? He's coming in with 25 professional fights. So that in itself is a large advantage over guys that were, for the most part, green and not quite ready. And when you look at him, he pushes a decent enough pace. And in that first fight against Sasu, takes his back like nothing, chokes him out. The second fight against Kiyomi Matsushima, that's a competitive fight. It's a competitive fight, but Yi is coming forward the whole time. He's mixing in his takedowns very well. And even though his wrestling's not super high level, he's continuously mixing between striking and wrestling, throwing his opponent off and working, and grinds out a split decision. So with Jeong Yeong Lee, meanwhile, you don't know if he's any good off his back. I got a 36-second armbar win. Again, if he's getting grinded for a prolonged period of time, I don't know that he's got all that good off his back. I don't know how good his takedown defense is. And I don't know how good his cardio is. So that all makes Yi a dangerous opponent at plus 210 because he could have the cardio advantage, the wrestling advantage, and he certainly has the experience and the pace. So live to just keep this thing close, keep this thing competitive. Mind you, when he beat Kiyomi Matsumisha, one of the better guys in the tournament, right? So I think this one is like not quite as straightforward as the line would suggest. And because I've been like tiptoeing around like, oh, this dog's got a chance, but I'm not gonna pick him. I gotta pull it up at some point. So I'm gonna take Yi as my first underdog on the card.
I thought he lost the Matsushima fight.
Matsushima's decent.
Oh yeah, of course. Like I guess he was like one of the favorites in it, but like I thought it was pretty like, yeah, Matsushima was like Japanese people are known for being like very, very polite and honorable. And it's just like you could see in his eyes how mad he was at that decision, and he still like, shook his hand and was like very, very classy about it. But like Yi shouldn't have won that fight when I was watching it. My problem with him is he just kind of just looks like a guard puller. Gives up like a lot of positions in like scrambles and stuff like that. Wasn't too impressed by his wrestling. Matsushima, yeah, he would like guard pull. He was like, yeah, lots of scrambles and like losing top position and stuff. Like, not a guy I love getting to. I will say that like from a betting perspective, I'm more interested in him, but I don't know.
Pass is probably
I have so many question marks about this Lee guy because of how fast his finishes were. Like I just didn't really see like the full scope, the full picture of what to expect. He's minus 250 as a favorite, so I'm going to be skipping it. It's definitely a pass for me. Oh, for the purposes of this show. I mean, in terms of like tout master, I'm probably going to watch the weigh-ins before I even actually like lock in a pick. For the purposes of this show, for people who track the picks that we make, I'll take the favorite in Lee. Moving on down, we got Rinya Nakamura taking on Toshiomi Kazama. My mistake. Kazama is the guard puller guy. Some of these names kind of confuse me, Cody. It's like I watched all of these fights, but I was
thinking, I was like, shit, I didn't think his wrestling was that bad. But
I got mixed up.
I hear what you're saying.
No, Kazama is the guy because he was the guy who took on this Keru Muali Mamiya whatever Maheti in his first fight. Yes. And that was the guy, yeah, he was taking, and that guy had actually fought Yi as well, in like the regional scene or whatever. He was giving, like, he's a grappler, he's a submission expert, and he was like guard pulling and then losing positions and stuff like that constantly over the course of that fight. Super, super close decision, pulls it out. Wasn't all that impressed by a bunch that I saw from him there. But yeah, the real story of this fight is Rinya Nakamura, who's minus 425. I mean, this guy, like world class level wrestling pedigree. I think he's like a world champion in whatever weight class, for one year. His fights on the road to the UFC. I mean, defensive striking, big liability. 100%. Like, he was just going out there, just bombs away. But it's like when he actually did pursue takedowns, like, man, he got to your hips real fast. The technique was elite. This guy's someone to watch out for. He's 27, so he's not exactly, a baby. The time is now for him to start making a charge up the ranks. I took Rinya Nakamura inside the distance at minus 125. I see that, and I'm considering adding this too. I'm considering adding him by submission because that's like plus 800. Now maybe he doesn't even try to take this fight to the mat. Maybe he just bombs away on the feet, and that's how he tries to approach this fight. But I kind of think of this as almost like, and people are going to think this is crazy, but it's almost like Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira. Nobody was calling for Makhachev to submit Charles Oliveira. But when you have somebody who is such a great positional wrestler, they can kind of just like put you on your back and then wear you down and find the submission. So like we saw submissions from him on the show, and he's got a couple other on his record. At 8-1, I don't think that's a very bad sprinkle. Most of my money will be in on Nakamura inside the distance at -125, but I'm probably going to be adding a little sprinkle to Nakamura by sub because I could totally see it playing out that way. Kazama's happy to be fighting off of his back, and he's taking on a very legit wrestler here in Nakamura. Probably this is the best prospect on this entire show. And I don't even think that's really up for debate. Like, I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. Listen, he's got a world-class wrestling pedigree. He was the under-23 world champion. He also got a bronze medal at the actual world championships. He's wrestled in Poland. He's wrestled in Spain. He's wrestled in the U.S. He's fought in Abu Dhabi. He's fought in Singapore. Like, he's been all over the world. He's traveled. He's a great athlete. If not for the COVID pandemic, he would 100% have represented Japan at the 2020 Olympics. The guy's a legitimate wrestler. Now, a lot of the time when you get a good wrestler, how are they going to transition over to MMA? Well, benefit for this kid, his dad, Kozo Nakamura, was one of the founders of Shudo, which is like the oldest MMA promotion in the world and one of the more popular MMA promotions in Japanese history. The kid didn't just grow up wrestling. He grew up wrestling because his dad knew you want to fight, you need to learn how to wrestle. And he had no problem quitting wrestling to transition to MMA because it just seems like it was something he was always going to do. I know what you're saying. He can wrestle. He can grapple. But he's not looking. He's looking to knock guys out. He likes to ground and pound. He likes to smash them. That fight with Gungun's Guzman, which is his first road to UFC appearance, he's super green still. He smashes him in the back of the head with an elbow and loses a point. Like, he's not quite, that high-level mixed martial arts that we're expecting him to be. And again, going back to Japanese fighters, third time I've mentioned this, if you're not training in a cage, if you're not training elbows, if you're not training these certain positions, you kind of do get lost every now and again in those scrambles. So once he loses the point, he's just like, oh man, I'm just gonna take this guy down and submit him, and just key locks him, Americana key lock, whatever you want to call it. That's guys that do jiu-jitsu largely refer to it as it's a bitch tap. Nobody taps to that. And when was the last time someone in the UFC lost to that? And if you were gonna go back all the way, it's gonna be Frank Mir or something against Pete Williams, just something stupid. Dan Severn used to hit them back in the day. Like, it's a dead gone move, but that's the advantage that he had over Guzman, so he used it. To me, though, ring IQ, baby. That next fight was Serghei, Nose. I don't know.
Yeah, Nose.
That kid goes on record. Nose. Yeah, Nose. Is that his last name? Is it Nose?
It's spelled Nose, but it's probably Nose or something like that. We're not professionals when it comes to the pronunciations of all these guys.
Well, so his
Sorry, what's that?
So in his second fight for Road to the UFC, his opponent goes on record being like, hey man, I'm just gonna, if he takes me down, I'm gonna submit him. I got a better grappling advantage over him. So he goes out there, he does not want to wrestle. He takes him down, or he doesn't take him down, he just smashes him, just goes berserk. Was it a little bit wild? Was it a little bit reckless? Of course, but desired outcome, gets the quick KO on the ground. So I'm going to use my wrestling to counteract that, keep it standing, blast him. When you look at this fight with Toshiomi Kazama, it's much of the same. He's decent on the ground. He wants to pull guard. He wants to try to get these positions. Don't let him. Keep it standing, blast him. His striking defense, not very good. His physicality, not very good. His ability to withstand damage, not very good. So I think Nakamura knocks him out. Doesn't submit him, but either way, we both like him. We both like him inside the distance.
Yeah, I mean, take the inside the distance prop probably. Like, it's like plus 110 out there for by knockouts. It's like, just in case. I left a little room for myself for that submission. But you make a lot of good points. Maybe I don't get to that. I'm happy with my investment on Nakamura to win inside the distance. Let's move on to the final Road to UFC one. We've got Hyun Sung Park taking on Seung Guk Choi. Minus 185 Park, plus 160 for Choi. Choi is one of Korean Zombie's, proteges, I guess you could say. I wasn't overly impressed with his game. Like, watching his fights on the road to UFC. I did think he was like a half decent strategist. He was able to, mix in takedowns in maybe even both of the fights. Now it's kind of like escaping me exactly which fight is which, but my biggest thing here is like on Prize Picks, they've got Park having 2 takedowns in this fight. And I don't really understand that line whatsoever. I feel like from watching what I've seen from these guys on tape, if anybody's going to be pursuing takedowns, it's going to be Choi. So I like the less than 2 takedowns on Prize Picks for this flyweight bout. And then Park, yeah, he just absolutely, yeah. So there's that Topnoi Kiram fight. I mean, he was getting absolutely mollywopped on the feet. He's taking on a world-class Muay Thai guy in Kiram. And he had a nice little comeback, but like I saw a lot of holes in this guy's game. And when the price is minus 185 here, I feel like if he doesn't get that first round finish, then what? I feel like what we saw from Choi, even though it wasn't as exciting, as exhilarating in terms of, the final results of the fight, he showed that he can stick to a boring game plan and strategize his way to victory. So at plus 160, considering him as a dog shot here, I'll pick him for the purposes of this show. But yeah, the Park less than 2 takedowns, I think that's the best Prize Picks leg on the entire card, to be perfectly honest. What's your take here, bud?
Yeah, certainly possible. Like, I think originally I was thinking the same thing. Choi, live underdog, simply because this is going to be a lower level fight that figures to be about 50-50, and it's not priced 50-50. So why not take the shot on him? But prior to jumping into the road to UFC tournament, he hadn't fought for 2 years. So understandably, in that first fight with Rama Supachi, he didn't look great. But yeah, he gets the takedowns and he's able to grind out some top control and get the win, catches a couple kicks if need be. The last one with Hyun Loon, way tougher. But again, I think his cardio is pretty decent, especially for a guy that's been off for that while. And he's just looking to grind on you and take you down, score some points that way. Could potentially grind a win out of this. But with Park, Park's just going to come on with a lot more technique, a lot more power, a lot better grappling. And I think that eventually he's gonna see through and get the win. When he got the call to fight on road to UFC, he's actually down at Bang Thai Muay Thai, in Thailand. So he's actually a training partner of Top Noi Kuram. But regardless, first rounding is that Jamie Strigar. He takes him down, he flattens him out, both hooks in, and just pounds him, easy TKO. His grappling doesn't look too bad at all. That fight with Top Noi, he's looking to strike. Top Noi blasts him with a left straight, right hook, left straight combination that floors him. But as soon as he hits the ground, he's got his wits about him. Like, he recovers right away. He's trying to, guard. Top Noi doesn't want to go to the ground with him, so he waves him up. Okay, waves him up, gets back up, takes Top Noi down, chokes him out. As soon as he got one hook down on Top Noi, he had him rear naked choke. Top Noi does a good job of fighting out of the choke the first time, switches sides, puts it in the second time. Top Noi tries to stand up and just collapses to the ground. The kid can grapple, and he can wrestle, and he can strike. And is he good at any one thing? I don't know. Is he more of a quick finisher? Maybe. But to me, here's a guy that could knock you out. And here's a guy that could submit you. And here's a guy that could make this a nice action-packed fight where he lands some good shots. There's some wow exchanges, some good moments. The judges score to him. Whereas with Choi can win the fight, no doubt. But how does Choi win the fight? Well, probably take him down, catch a kick, lie on him, press him into the cage, and hope the judges give it to you. Well, good thing you're plus money, because that would be the only saving grace here. But I think a smart guy just passes altogether because the line on Park's too much. But at the same time, I don't know that I pull the trigger on a dog play here. It's greasy, and I don't want no part of it. The line's too big for Park, but I would have him as the favorite. Yeah,
that's you're not going to get too much resistance from me on that one. I was just on Prize Picks, 2 takedowns for Park seemed a little bit. Maybe he's got some sort of wrestling that I haven't seen in some of the other fights. I just thought that they kind of set that line. I was surprised to even get a takedown market on Park because I didn't really see him pursuing takedowns mostly in his fights. I didn't see like any sort of technical wrestling and what I've seen on tape, and I obviously haven't seen every single one of his fights, so maybe I'm missing a little bit there. But on Prize Picks, I liked Park less than 2 takedowns. I think he's probably going to try to approach this fight mostly on the feet, and definitely can win that fight on the feet. I don't think I actually get to Choi at plus 160 as a bet whatsoever. I'll pick him, and I'll probably have him in Toutmaster. We got Ji-Yoon Kim taking on Mandy Bohm. Ji-Yoon Kim, a minus 250 favorite. Bohm can be had for plus 210, Cody. You know what they say. Friends don't left friends. Bet on Mandy Bohm. But she's plus 210 against Ji-Yoon Kim, who's on a 4-fight losing streak. Like, does Kim get back on track here? I don't think I can get to Bohm. The reason I'm mispronouncing her name, it's actually Bohm, is because that's like the fun little nickname I've been making her, which is not very nice, but it is what it is. I don't really see too many redeeming qualities for her. I feel like this is like a get right spot for Ji-Yoon Kim. Like, in fair being fair, Ji-Yoon Kim should have won the fight against Catch Beating. That's just fair being fair. Has a lot of volume when she's landing. This fight is minus 400 to the over 2.5 rounds, so she could put up 150 significant strikes if this goes 15 minutes. So Prize Picks at 77.5. Maybe that's not a bad look to get on. I'll be picking Kim, but minus 250 scare me off. What about you, buddy?
Yeah, I want to load up on Kim. I mean, looking at the tape, it seems like this is her spot to go out there and win. But of course, as Pat Man would tell you, these women's MMA spots, it's going to be a lot tightly contested. And she's on a 4-fight losing streak. The judges don't typically give her the win, even in spots where she looks like she out-hustled her opponent. And Bohm really hasn't really shown the best of her game quite yet. So all reason to believe that, yeah, it could be a little of a greasier, tighter spot. And at this line, you probably don't want a whole lot. Here's the thing with Bohm. Bohm actually didn't look too bad at one point. She comes over to Canada, wins the TKO title over Jade Mason Wong, looked good there. Signs with Bellator, wins her first fight against Greg Aikut, looked okay there, and then tells Bellator, I don't want to fight for you guys. Please release me from my contract. I would like to go to the UFC. So the UFC signs her and paid her actually decent enough money to come in and fight Ariane Lipski, where people thought she might actually have a chance. She proceeds to stand in front of Lipski and do nothing. And Paul, I mean nothing. She stared at it. She did not want to counterpunch. She did not want to lead the dance. She did not want to initiate anything. She looked like a deer stuck in the headlights. But we'll give her a pass. UFC debut, been off for a little while, tough-ish opponent in Lipski, let's say. Okay, no problem. Well, let's rebound you here against Victoria Leonardo. The Leonardo fight was the exact same. And mind you, she left Europe and went down to Extreme Couture, where she gets with Eric Nixick. She puts a full camp in Las Vegas. This is the best Mandy Bohm that's going to show up. She has an 8-inch reach advantage over Victoria Leonardo and proceeds to throw no jabs, proceeds to not do really much of anything. I thought she looked better than her debut, but she just allows Victoria Leonardo to outwork her pretty much the entire time, take her down twice, seal the deal in the third round with a big takedown. She looked lethargic. She looked disinterested. She did not look like she was there to competitively try to fight for 15 minutes. Not only that, she fights at a super slow pace. And in both of her fights in the UFC, she completely gasses about 6 or 7 minutes into the fight. So low pace, still with bad cardio, not comfortable, no ability to use the reach. I did not like what I saw in either performance for sure. The one thing she's got is that she's got like a 71-inch reach, which is long. Again, it was long against Victoria Leonardo, and that's nullified because Ji-Yoon Kim's got a freakishly long 72-inch reach. Mm-hmm. Kim's got the output. She's got the output all day. When you look at she's losing, sure she's losing. She put up 68 against Alexa Grasso, who looks to fight for a title in the very, very near future. Against Molly McCann, she put up 122, and that was giving up 2 takedowns. Yep. She was taken down twice. She still lands 122. Priscilla Cachoeira, she lands 170. That's sickening numbers. Should have won the fight. Cachoeira landed some hellish elbows in the third that swung it in her favor, but 170 landed. Crazy output. And even her last time out against Jocelyn Edwards, very tough fight. Honestly, the third round, she looked pretty good. Scored a takedown in the third round. Her cardio looked good. Her pace looked good. The first two, she had trouble finding the target. Against Mandy Bohm, not going to be the problem. She doesn't really move her feet all that much. She basically walks herself back to the cage and just straddles the outside of it in a circle. She's not throwing output. If this ends up being a dogfight, Kim will 3-1 her. Bond's not sure. She's gone 0 for 5 in takedown attempts. She shows a 0% takedown accuracy. That can't be the game plan. Certainly not for 15 minutes. And is she just going to come out and suddenly throw 3 times the amount of strikes that she normally does? I don't see it. This thing may be somewhat competitive for the first round. Second round, Kim's going to keep throwing. Bomb's going to tire. Third round, Kim's going to beat her. If this is 1-1 going into the third, I'm live betting Kim for sure. I just don't think it's going to be 1-1. Maybe Bohm wins the first. That's her best case. It's all downhill after that. So I got Kim. And then if you wanted to, like, you were a little bit nervous about pre-fight, maybe you wait and watch a bit of the first round. The problem is at this line, if she wins the first round, it's gone. You're not getting back on it. So I think Kim wins. It's just we've all been in these spots where we've learned our lesson, and Pat's always got some great takes that ends up winning. Like, I don't know how he does it, but he does. He does it for a reason. They're not the most comfortable spots that you can bet a ton in. But if you want to look at this card and, like, who should win their fight fairly convincingly, who has their opponent beat pretty much all areas, yeah, it would be Kim. And just like they're trying to do for Choi, it's like, you know what, we did you dirty, man. 3-fight losing streak, tough guys. Let's do you a solid. Kim's on a 4-fight losing streak. Why is she even fighting in the UFC? If she loses this and she goes on a 5-fight losing streak, it's like, who else have they allowed to do that? BJ Penn? And there was one other guy they allowed to do that. I don't know why. Carlos Condit? Like, I don't know. Why would you let someone go on a 5-fight losing streak? But I think they're like, you're a lot better than your record indicates, and we're sorry, and let us throw you up one here. Mandy Bond's 0-2, really done nothing. This is your spot. This is your spot to rebound. I think she takes full advantage.
Should we just not, just Kim decision, like minus 120? Don't overthink it. Just bet that and be on your way.
Yeah. Like Bond's doesn't have durability issues. I don't think she hasn't been.
Never been finished.
But yeah, like she just looks so disinterested. My worry would be if Kim comes in with a barrage that she might just turn, or I don't know. Decision Kim, smart. But how many times have you been owned on a prop where you're like, I should have just hit the money line?
I mean, at minus 250, that's what gets me off of betting this fight all the way around. I mean, the only finish in the UFC that Kim has was against Nadia Kassem, who is the worst in this division's history. I think that's like, she is on my Mount Rushmore. She was so bad when she was in the UFC. I hope she's doing well. But yeah, like that's her finish that she has in the UFC. Otherwise, she's went up against much harder opponents. She's been very durable. Bohm has been very, very durable. I mean, over 2.5 is juiced to minus 400. Getting that 250 down to minus 120, like, I'll wait until weigh-ins. Maybe the line just escapes me, goes up to like minus 150, and then I get scared off of it. But that's how I would approach it. Kim by decision is how I 100% really think that this fight plays out. Like, she's going to win on volume over the course of 3 rounds. We got Jeong Yeong Park taking on Denis Tiuliulin. Minus 210 Park, plus 180 for Tiuliulin. 2 guys that, we kind of talk about as being... Jeong Yeong Park, we did talk about him being, like, super, super durable. But I feel like, that durability has been cracked a little bit. Like, sometimes people have to exploit it from a grappling perspective on him. Like, he's been, he got submitted by Anthony Hernandez. Fluffy is one hell of a grappler, don't get me wrong on that front. And then Gregory Rodriguez standing TKO'd. He took so much damage in that. The guy had taken so many shots. You worry about long-term, is this going to be a problem for him? Tiuliulin, on the other hand, I mean, Ali Scrab was about as hard of a debut as you could ask for. And then he followed it up next time out against Jamie Pickett and just absolutely handed a beat down to him. His defense, striking defense, is horrible, but his chin, he trains with Sean Strickland on a daily basis, I believe, in Vegas. Like, his chin definitely holds up. I'm tempted on the underdog here, Cody, in Denis Tiuliulin. I'm not so convinced. 2 takedowns on Prize Picks for Jeong Yeong Park. Like, he's gotten over that number before, but I'm not so convinced that he's just going to come out here and just take Jeong Yeong Park down at will. Like, I thought Tiuliulin did pretty well for himself against Ali Scrab Kirziev. Was taken down 2 times in that fight, but he's taking on an elite grappler. Park's got 2 takedowns against Joseph Holmes, but got taken down 3 times by Eric Anders. Like, I think that takedowns is way too high for Park. I expect these guys to kind of just stand and trade, and maybe both of their chins hold up and we go a full 15. But gun to my head, forced to bet on this fight, I'd be siding with Denis Tululin on the money line at plus 180. What's your take here, bud?
I think I'm going to take Denis Tulin as well. I don't want a ton of exposure on it, but yeah, we're going to need a couple greasy underdogs. This one fits the description of a greasy underdog. So again, first and foremost with him, he's got a bad rap as he can't wrestle. Well, why can't he? Well, look at his debut against Aliskhab Kizirev. Yeah, the guy's a badass grappler. And yeah, he put up a fight. He got taken down. Unfortunate. The one before that against Iskram Aliskarov, I mean, like the guy that gave Chimaev, that his only career losses against Chimaev, absolute beast, absolute stud rushing grappler. He got taken down by him too. Like, oh, damn. Sucks. But yeah, that's his thing, is that he's fighting really good guys. So I think if you even just watch the Jamie Pickett fight, Jamie Pickett like shoots a bum takedown, and the whole commentary team's like, "Oh, that's the move." Denis showed in his last fight his grappling deficiencies. Yeah, against a stud. Couldn't grapple against a stud. Because Jamie Pickett, he stops all the takedowns pretty easily. Looked pretty good. Looked pretty solid. Now the other thing is this cardio, right? The guy's got trash cardio. Going back to 2015, this is straight up trash cardio. He wins first round knockout, right? The next one goes to the second round. He gasses out and he gets rear naked choked. Win in the first round, and he loses to Ruslan Shamalov on a split decision because he gassed out. The next one he wins in the first round, then he loses to Jean Patrick by split decision. Yeah, because he gasses out. Second round finish, first round finish, first round finish, first round finish. When he loses, it's when it goes to the second or the third. When he wins, it's the first. He's 34 years old. He's a front runner. That's kind of how he is. I think he's got 12 finishes inside the distance, 8 by KO. We know who he is. The guy maybe can't wrestle defensively, and he's got spotty cardio. Yeah, but look, go back to the Jamie Pickett fight. I'll be damned. His takedown defense looks solid, and his cardio looks solid, and that was a big difference maker. He's actually beating Kurziev on the feet. Kurziev has to bail himself out by going to the takedowns. Against Pickett couldn't get the fight to the ground. And by the way, Pickett's gone the distance with Tafon and Jakui. Pickett's gone the distance with some decent enough hitters. His durability wasn't necessarily a giant concern, and Denis just mauled him. He beat him up. His short distance, elbows. Everything was elbows in that short quarters, right? From the outside, big old right hands, constantly moving forward, constantly forcing you to fight off your back foot. If the guy's on Russian supplements and he can fight 2 full rounds, he can be a problem for a lot of guys. If his takedown defense is better, he'd be a problem for a lot of guys. And of course, he trains with some of the best guys in the game. I would think that to a certain extent, it's rubbing off a little bit on him. Jeong Yeong Park, talented as he may be, very limited still. His fight with John Phillips, you're the only guy to beat John Phillips and go to decision. Like, why are you not finishing him? Well, and he landed a bunch of crappy little short ground and pound strikes, but no sense of urgency. The Tafon and Jakui fight, majority decision, not a spectacular performance. His fight with Gregory Robocop Rodriguez, he's got him done. Rodriguez is done, okay? Take a step back, let him wade in, counter him, and put him away. No, he decides, let's play Rock'em Sock'em Robots, gets himself clipped and gets himself knocked out. To me, that's the issue, is that as much as he could fight a smart game plan, he is also prone to trying to put this Iron Turtle moniker to good use. Oh, I'm durable. I can take a shot. Let's throw down. You don't want to throw down with Denis because it's not the path of least resistance. Take him down. Use that outside trip that you use. Do what you got to do, but no, it doesn't. And so people will say he lost the Eric Anders fight. I think he won the Eric Anders fight, but he got controlled the entire time. It's the last one against Joseph Holmes. You mentioned he puts a mollywop beating on Joseph Holmes. He got bailed out by the takedowns because Joseph Holmes was actually, surprisingly enough, beating him up standing, hitting him standing. Iron Turtle don't move his head, man. He comes forward. And so that's fine, but against a heavy power puncher, you're walking into danger. And so let's use, not MMA math, but let's use our common guy here, and Gregory Rodriguez, because you nailed this. You pick who is a big old caboose of a man he just lost to.
My guy, Bruno Ferreira.
Man. You bet him. Gregory Robocop Rodriguez.
Yeah, he lost Bruno Ferreira, my guy.
Okay, and you mentioned this. You said, well, Bruno's a heavy hitter, as limited as he may be, and he kind of is limited in ways. He's a big old, thick, heavy-hitting guy. And Gregory could win this fight. He could take it down. He's got the better grappling. He's got the more experience. He's got this and that. But he's got a tendency to fight his opponent's level and engage. And if he engages Bruno, not going to be a good time. He engages Bruno, it was not a good time. I get a lot of feeling that's the same thing here. Park goes to the takedowns over and over, can make the wrestling work. He's got way better cardio. You got to grind on him, take him into deeper waters. Once you get him into deeper waters, you're going to be okay. Or you can engage him like an idiot and you might get knocked out. And I got a feeling he's going to engage him like an idiot and get knocked out. So I need an underdog. Let's go for Denis too.
I hope that we're both right, because I just it actually moved to plus 190, and I was just like, all right, I'll be your Huckleberry at plus 190. Plus 175 is going to get my money. I guess people are moving in on the Iron Turtle. I love the Iron Turtle. I've bet him in a bunch of spots, but I think at this price, Tululan, the guys that he's working with on a daily basis should put him in a pretty decent spot to at least make this fight competitive. And finally, we've got an absolute one-sided fight. Tatsuro Taira takes on Jesus Aguilar. Minus 1,200 for Taira. Plus 800 for Aguilar. Aguilar, I remember being on Contender Series in a very, very close competitive fight where he utilized his grappling to win that fight. Feel like you got to probably throw all of that out the window, because that's where Taira absolutely cooks. Minus 1,200, what are we supposed to do with this fight, though, Cody? Like, is he going to get the finish inside the distance? I mean, we're both picking Taira pretty clearly. Minus 1,200 is very, very difficult. Does he get the finish over Aguilar is the real question here. Is that how you approach this fight? Or do you take him by decision? I'm a little bit split and torn on it all the way around, to be perfectly honest right now. Taira, obviously, is my pick.
Yeah, I think Tatsuro Taira finishes a rear naked choke, probably under 1.5. He's got a knack for taking the back. I mean, he's a solid prospect, but his best abilities, right, is grappling. He's got a good ability to hit in transition, good back takes, end up on good positions, end up on top if he needs to be, and then has good solid control. In his debut, it's like you're taking on a guy who at that time had never been finished, BJJ black belt, Candelario, limited as he may be, was a durable opponent. And he just styles on him. He gets the positions he wants. He can hold it. His cardio is solid. His ring IQ looked decent enough. He still does make mistakes in there. Young fighter, no doubt about it. But if you're going to feed him these lower level guys, he's going to style on them. CJ Vergara, meanwhile, that's exactly what he does. Vergara was known as a tough out, a guy that's going to continuously be coming forward. He's going to be letting his hands go. He's going to make it problematic for you. But the thing is, he makes too many mistakes. He leaves openings, right? And being tough is great, and you can out-toughen your opponent. But if they're that much more skilled, they're going to pick off those openings. That's exactly what he does. He just takes his back. The first round, grinds him pretty good. Second round, giving him a good old-fashioned grinding, takes his back. And then that transition to armbar, it's like this kid's good. He's getting better. And as long as they continuously match him up against guys that he can take these positions, he's going to continuously get these submissions. With Jesus Aguilar, I think he's like 26 years old, but he's been around the game for a long time. Made his pro debut in 2015. Hasn't lost since his pro debut in 2015 when he was 19 years old, but he doesn't really fight all that much. He comes in, he lets his hands fly. He's a big, physically built guy, big chest on him. Daniel Cormier was admiring him on the Contender Series, but he just throws caution to the wind. Here's the thing with, maybe he's got a puncher's chance. Maybe if he sits down in one of those punches, he has a 62.5-inch reach. It's like non-existent. It's non-existent, and as a result, he swings from way too far out. Taira's known for his grappling. Taira could probably beat him with his stand-up just by staying to the outside and chip-shotting at him. He's going to eventually have to close the distance. When he does, he's going to fall over. In a lot of these fights, he's making a mistake. Sometimes he gets bailed out. He's got that guillotine. The Edgar Chavez one, 5th-round guillotine choke. He was dangerous in the 5th. The Jamie Alvarez fight. Jamie Alvarez was a Contender Series veteran, a guy that should have been in the big show once upon a time, snagged him up with a 2nd-round guillotine. The guillotine's his move on the Contender Series, right? Mm-hmm. Loses the 1st round. 2nd round's close. 3rd round, he snags up that guillotine. So Taira's got to still pay attention. Don't wade into a big overhand right. Don't jump in head first into a guillotine choke. But barring he doesn't do any of those things, I think he absolutely styles on him. And what I will say is Jesus Aguilar versus Erison Ferreira. In the 1st round, he takes Ferreira down. Ferreira gets back up. He goes for like an inside trip, and he literally just pulls Ferreira on top of him. Okay, he works his way back up. He grabs Ferreira, and I don't know why, but he does it a second time. He pulls him on top of him. Ferreira passes right to mount, takes the back, flattens him out, punches him in the head, and the round ends. In the 2nd round, he's out grappling him, and then you would see like he would go for a back take. He'd get too high, and he'd fall off. He ends the second round on his back again. In the third round, he grabs the guillotine, but he's making way too many mistakes in there for someone like Tybura not to take advantage. He's got a knack for giving up his back. His only pro loss was by a first round rear naked choke. And there's another one incoming here. I think Tybura takes his back, subs him with a rear naked. If not, maybe another armbar under 1.5. If it's not under 1.5, I don't think this makes it to the third. And he's minus 1,400, he's minus 1,200, well, whatever. There's nothing really I can tell you. He's a big favorite. He's a big favorite. Why is he a big favorite? All the things that we just outlined. But how do you improve it? The under 1.5, the inside the distance, the submission, the first round submission. I don't think this one's going to last all that long.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the only loss on Aguilar's career is a rear naked choke loss back in 2015. Maybe that's why it's scaring people a little bit off of like a Tybura inside the distance. Tybura inside the distance is in the minus 200 range. Doesn't seem like a bad play there, to be perfectly honest. I don't know if I'm going to get there with my own money. The bets that I do have in this week, we got Blagoy Ivanov plus 130. We got Saragih at minus 110, which isn't even necessarily a good line on the market right now. I'm surprised that that's not moving to like minus 150, to be perfectly honest, but we will see. On Saturday night, I got Denis Tululin, just added it, plus 190, and Nakamura wins inside the distance, minus 125. Got Bellator this weekend too. You know I'm gonna have money on my boy Max Roshkov. It's, I'm forever connected to him. We're gonna have to get him back on the program at some point. He actually did, after our last time that we spoke to him, said that we could reach out at any time after, the whole thing that happened with the commission and not allowing him to fight against Hamill. I figured, let the guy get back to let the guy get back to business. Hopefully, he pulls off a victory this weekend. He's like plus 160, plus 170 out there. I'm gonna have money on it. I'm curious to see where that line goes, and I'll be snatching some of it up by Saturday. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, that's where my money is this week. Without further ado, Cody, hit him with the PRP.
Hit him with the PRP. We're going to go Serghei Spivac, Jung, Marcin, Tybura, Duho, Choi, Yusaku, Kinoshita, Jeka, Saragih, Yi is dog number 1. Like, you should just pass on those people. But we're going to go dog number 1. Rinya, Nakamura, Hyun Park. You could go dog number 2 there, but I'll go Park. Jeong Kim, Denis Chulin is officially dog number 2. Tetsuya Taira. So I know where it's like, oh man, you don't got a whole lot of underdogs. Yeah, switch over to the Bellator if you want underdogs. I think what were the ones I really like. Okay, Lorenz Larkin at plus 185. Got a shot. He just fought this guy. The guy couldn't do nothing with the takedowns, and then one shot in the back of the head and it KOs the guy. Like, whatever. That was a bad fight for Birkenhoff. 185. Solid line. Ali Isaev is a plus 110. Man, we won $1 million in PFL. He's never lost. He's stout. If he gets on top, he's not getting submitted by Steve Mowry. He's live. Max Roshkov, as Paul said, not hugging aside at that line, certainly has a chance. Grant Neal, plus 120. Did anybody watch Carl Albrechtson's last fight? He's awful. This is a bad fighter. This is a bad fighter. Grant Neal's going to beat him, plus 120. Darian Caldwell tempted, but he's just like so uninterested. Jalon Bates live at plus 265. No way. Ethan Hughes is the underdog now? What the hell happened there?
Jornal Lugo, minus 320.
Holy shit.
Bates is
Ethan
plus
Hughes
265.
dropped from minus 300. He opened at minus 300, and he's currently plus 120.
Who?
That's a lot of money. Ethan Hughes, who I'm going to bet, by the way.
Ethan Hughes.
Crazy, but I wonder why the line movement.
Never heard of him, bro.
It's like the very first fight on the card. First fight on the card, if you just want the quick one there. So, like, Ethan Hughes is like 20 years old, I think. And he was 19 years old, and he came in and he fought that Mahmoud Fauzi Sebi, who's a fraud, terrible. But he's a plus 750 underdog, this kid from Mississippi who's 20. And, man, his jiu-jitsu looks solid. His striking looks solid. His cardio looks solid. His chin was good. He fought him the entire way. He tired him, took him in the third round, molly-whopped him, got a win. Hasn't fought in like 3 years. He hasn't fought in 2 years, I think. So he's still only 21 years old. But, like, the kid had it. He's like Jason Knight. It reminds me a lot of Jason Knight. This Yusuf Kurakaya guy, he's a Muay Thai guy. I remember he fought Nikki Holtzkin in Turkey and got clowned on. Now, Nikki Holtzkin, one of the best in the world, but this guy was not a very good kickboxer at the time. and he's since won one MMA fight 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Like, why did that much money come down? How did a minus 300 flip to a plus 150 and that was the guy? That don't make no sense to me. Anyways, I'm still gonna bet Ethan Hughes. Probably just gonna have less on it, I suppose. Glad I didn't bet him at. I seen him at minus 190. They're saying it open at 300. I only saw it at minus 190. Whatever. Honestly, this Bellator card looks good to me. There's good plus money plays. There's good favorites that should come in. Neiman Gracie should be solid. Johnny Eblen, price is still pretty good. Ryan Bader, I'm a little bit nervous, but you've already seen this fight once before. It was non-competitive. Bader gets the takedown again, probably much of the same. I like Bellator, man. I like Bellator this week. I think the UFC is just supplemental to it. And between the two of them, you can get I got a good 8-fight parlay and a good 10-fight parlay. And then, of course, you can extend them out longer than that if you want. But on no card, you feel good about having 8 guys win, but you feel pretty good about having 4 guys win on the UFC card and 4 guys win on the Bellator card. And that 8-fight parlay feels pretty good now, doesn't it? So excited for what this Saturday could present. And in terms of the Bellator, I wanted to do a Bellator preview because I spent way too much time tape studying this entire card. I'm just so busy, right? So if I don't get to it, I will tell you I'm going Bader, Johnny Eblen, Saba Hamasi, Neiman Gracie, Lorenz Larkin, Ahmed Magomedov, Ali Asayev, Max Roshkov, Grant Neal, Alejandro Lara. She'll be a lot better here too. And this Diana girl, it's an even money fight. Diana's no good. Zero good. Absolutely not good. Won a split decision over an absolute nobody opponent, Golfin, 2 fights ago. And Lara fights all the best girls and generally loses, but she switched her training camp. She'll be better this time. Caldwell could win. Jalon Bates. I am taking Bates and Caldwell. Isaiah Hokett, even though he's got no chin. And Ethan Hughes. So, again, you got a lot of good spots this weekend, too. Makes a match, make stuff work, and hopefully come out profitable. So, 26 fights between both cards. You don't got to bet all 26. Just bet the good ones.
But Cody,
money. And
but
then
Cody will bet all 26 fights in some sort of greasy parlay at some point. Yeah, that Hughes fight,
100%,
I don't really know.
Yeah, but the ones at the bottom.
Yeah, I don't really know all that much about the Hughes one, but that is some pretty wild. Like, it was Saturday, it opened at minus 300. And then on Tuesday, it went from minus 190 all the way up to like plus 140 at one point. So someone unloaded, or a tout service or something like that, unloaded a clip on this Yusuf guy. So that's kind of interesting.
What I would say is, like, the pessimistic side of you now thinks, well, is Ethan Hughes hurt? Does somebody in his camp know that he's got a broken ankle and he's taking this fight anyways? He hasn't fought since the biggest win of his career 2 years ago, or I guess it was only a year. I keep saying it was a long time ago. A little over a year. He hasn't fought since then. He had a canceled fight in the mix. He probably is hurt. He probably is banged up. He probably does need the paycheck. He's only 21 years old. He's a student. Got to go. Who knows? Or is it that they just think Yusuf Karakaya is a great kickboxer and he's going to knock out the kid because the kid's got decent, not very great striking? Maybe. But I'll tell you one thing. That kid was Mississippi tough. He was one of those kids that you could blast in the head with a head kick, and he was going to keep coming forward. He was going to get to the ground. He was going to make you pay. He's a problem. That Ethan Hughes kid's a problem. He's 21 years old. This kid will actually end up being half decent. Yusuf, I don't know how Yusuf ended up here from Turkey. I don't know. He's got those kickboxing roots. I think he's spending a little bit of time maybe at Glory MMA and Fitness. But yeah. I would say I like better Hughes at plus 110 than I would have liked him at minus 300, I suppose. But yeah, and Jalon Bates, here's another one that I'll leave you with. Jalon Bates in all of his fights,
been a massive favorite.
He's very long, right? Yeah, he's 5'10" for 135 pounds. Very long, got a funk style of wrestling, trains out of Oregon, and he's a problem. As an amateur, he went 9-0. As a pro, he's undefeated 5-0, and they give him this Mark Coates. Mark Coates, BJJ black belt, guy that used to fight at 55. And Bates looks awful. He looked awful. And he's a minus 900 favorite over Marky Mark. And he beats Mark Coates on a split decision. Should have been unanimous. Beats him on a split decision. And now, just like that, people are off of him. Well, keep in mind, this kid's 26 years old, okay? He's undefeated as an amateur and a pro. That was a good gut check performance for him. And he's got legitimately good grappling. Jornal Lugo, meanwhile, yeah, he's only 27. He's decent, but he struggles with the grappling, okay? He's not a good counter grappler. He gave up spots against Keith Lee. In his last fight against Danny Sabatello, who's the man grappling, he's a fish out of water. Like, Bates put him in 2 bad spots and Cash is a plus 240 underdog. So I don't love the underdogs on the UFC card. On the Bellator, I think there's 4 or 5 coming through, and that's highly unusual for a Bellator card.
Yeah, maybe they're wise to the fact that we always say like, oh, chalk absolutely rocks at Bellator, and maybe that's what they're kind of adjusting to. They're hoping that people make those parlays. So if anybody, yeah, it was. So you like Bates, Roshkov, Isaev, Lorenz Larkin, Grant Neal, and Ethan Hughes. I'm gonna put a little bit. I'm gonna put a little bit on those underdogs. You know me, I love betting underdogs, and when Cody Saftic tells me to bet underdogs. I mean, no disrespect to you. They're not going to be the size of my regular wagers, but I'll scatter some shots on those guys. Yeah, should add some extra fun to a very, very jam-packed Saturday night filled with fights. But that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed this show. For producer Megan and Cody Saftic, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.